Hi guys and welcome to Tiny Evils. Now we're going to start with the last part of medical mycology, that is opportunistic mycosis. So this opportunistic mycosis is caused by a group of fungi which are normally present in and around us, that is they are commensals or they are saprophytes present normally in our surroundings or living inside of us, right, and not causing any disease because our immunity is strong enough to take care of them. But when the immunity of the human host lowers for some reason or the other, these fungi get the opportunity to infect us. Right. So, like you get the opportunity when your crush has a breakup to shoot your shot, that is how these fungi get the opportunity when the human host immunity is lowered. Right. So, let's start with the first one, that is Candidiasis. Right. So, Candidiasis is caused by a group of fungi, right, belonging to the genus Candida. Right. So these are caused by a group of fungi belonging to the genus Candida, and as you recall from the medical mycology introduction, Candida belongs to a group of fungi which have yeast-like morphology. Right? These are yeast-like fungi. That is, they will be producing pseudohyphae, and we will see the importance of pseudohyphae in just a bit. Right? So these were these yeast-like cells, and they were producing buds which were not detaching. So they had constriction in their hyphae. So these are the pseudohyphae. Right. So, and one other important thing from that old video, that all the species of the genus Candida are going to be yeast-like fungi. Their morphology is going to be yeast-like. They will be producing pseudohyphae except Candida glabrata. Right. That was the only species of Candida which was not producing pseudohyphae. Now, the most common species of Candida which will be causing disease in us, that is Candidiasis, will be Candida albicans. Right, and it is a commensal. It is found in our skin. It is found on our skin or oral mucosa or GIT or genital urinary tract mucosa. So it will be a commensal which will be present on us. Right. So it is the most common and most pathogenic species as well. Right. So Candida albicans is the most common and most pathogenic species which will be infecting humans. Right, and it is a commensal like we just talked, and which will be present in our skin, oral cavity, mucosa, and genitourinary tract or gastrointestinal tract. Right. So, what are the risk factors which will, increase our chances of getting this disease, that is candidiasis? Right. So, risk factors include your HIV infection. Right, immunity is lowered. There could be some person who's on steroid therapy or any other immunosuppressant drug, right? Or they have undergone some transplant, right? So post transplantation, and in case someone has neutropenia, and also in zinc deficiency or iron deficiency, the immunity is lowered enough so that these fungi can cause this disease, right? So now let's talk about the virulence factors. What are virulence factor, you ask? Virulence factors are nothing but the weapons, right? These are the weapons of the fungus, weapons of the organism, which will help in pathogenesis, right? Which will help it invade our tissue and cause the disease. So we have adhesins. Adhesins are nothing but some molecule or some structure of the organism which is going to help in attachment to the host cells, right? So it will help in attachment. Now, as they are commensals, these Candida genus is commensal, so it will help in attachment to the host skin or mucosa, right? Now, there could be production of some enzymes such as aspartate, proteinase, and serine proteinase. Now, these are going to help in tissue invasion, right? These are enzymes, and they will help the organism to invade our tissues. Now, this organism, that is Candida genus, can also produce some toxins, right? So, the most common one which is seen is the glycoprotein extract from the cell wall, like in case of bacteria we will see, right? So glycoprotein extract of cell wall, these are actually pyrogenic, that is they are going to increase the temperature. So these toxins are going to be pyrogenic, glycoprotein extract of the cell wall of the organism. And again, now we are back to the pseudohyphae, right? So when you see while you're diagnosing in the lab, if you see the pseudohyphae in your microscopy examination, so that will indicate that this is an active infection, right? So the person whose specimen you have is suffering from an active infection from the Candida species, and this also indicate that tissue invasion has already occurred, right? That tissue invasion is already occurred. Now, some theory is there that the pseudohyphal tips, right? And this is a pseudohyphae, and the tips of pseudohyphae secrete phospholipase, right, which help in tissue invasion. Like the enzymes we saw earlier, aspartate proteinase and serine proteinase, this is this phospholipase, which is also secreted by the pseudohyphae, also helps in tissue invasion, but this is not proved yet, right? Now let's talk about a special thing about Candida albicans itself, Candida species, right? So this Candida albicans is going to show a special property. Candida albicans is going to show a special property which is known as phenotypic switching, right? It is also known as phenotypic dimorphism. Now, what am I talking about? This Candida albicans is going to exist in more than two forms at a single temperature, right? In thermally dimorphic fungi, we saw that the fungi has two different morphological forms at two different temperature. But this Candida albicans can exist in more than two forms, right, at a single temperature only. So let's see how is it existing. So we have this yeast form, we have the pseudohyphae, and we have also the true hyphae, right? So in pseudohyphae and true hyphae, you can differentiate by the constriction. In pseudohyphae, you're going to see constriction, right? These are constriction. But in true hyphae, you are not going to see any constriction. They are going to be just septi, right? In this image also, you can see very well that these are the yeast cell, budding yeast cells, and this is the pseudohyphae, and this is a true hyphae with no constriction but septi, right? Now we know that Candida albicans can exist in yeast form or pseudohyphae or hyphae at a single temperature, but why does it do that? Okay, so it is an advantage to the fungi, obviously, because it helps, this property helps adapt in adaptation, right? It helps in adaptation to the various changing conditions in the host cells, right? So a lot of changing environmental things happens in the host cell itself. So for these changes in the host cell, it adapts itself according to the morphology, right? So various changing condition of host cell, right? Now let's talk about the clinical manifestation that we are going to see in the patients, right? So we are going to see three main major types of clinical manifestation in case of candidiasis, right? So the first one is mucosal candidiasis, then we have cutaneous candidiasis, and we have invasive candidiasis. Now mucosal candidiasis is going to include your oral thrush, right? You see oral thrush, or we see vulvo-vaginal candidiasis. See, oral thrush is nothing but these are white, painless patches in the oral mucosa, right? In the oral mucosa. And these are one of the major things that we are going to see in our patients, right? Oral thrush, which are nothing but the white painless patches in the seen adherent to the oral mucosa. And we have vulvovaginal candidiasis as well. In vulvovaginal candidiasis, this is basically seen in diabetic women, right? It is seen in diabetic women. And what happens is, initially in vulvovaginal candidiasis, you are going to see a thin vaginal discharge, which will later turn into curdy white appearance, right? So initially there is going to be thin vaginal discharge, which will later turn into curdy white, right? And there is also intense pruritus, okay? In vulvovaginal candidiasis, there is intense pruritus, but the important thing to remember is there is no change in pH, no change in pH. The pH remain acidic around less than 4.5 only, right? So we see oral thrush, we see vulvovaginal candidiasis, and there is one more. We also see in mucosal candidiasis there is esophageal candidiasis. Now, if you're seeing esophageal candidiasis, the next thing that you're going to perform in your the next test you're going to perform in your patient is your HIV test. So this esophageal candidiasis, because it is a AIDS defining illness, right? Like we saw in histoplasma capsulatum as well, histoplasmosis, that was also AIDS defining illness. So like that, we also this esophageal candidiasis is also AIDS defining illness. And if you're seeing this in your patient, the next thing you are going to check is their HIV status, right? Now we have cutaneous candidiasis, and cutaneous candidiasis we are going to see intertrigo, right? We are going to see intertrigo, which is nothing but the infection of skin folds, right? So it is mostly associated with tight fitting clothes and with excess sweating, right? So maculae and pustules, not maculae, pustules or erythema is going to be present in intertrigo, right? And there could be diaper rash, there could be diaper candidiasis in children as well, pediatric age group. You can see diaper candidiasis. Now in invasive candidiasis, that is, you are going to see the organism is out into the blood and it is invading very furiously. So there could be urinary tract infection in this case, or you could see pulmonary candidiasis as well, or there could be presence of septicemia, right? So involving various visceral organs. Now we are done with the clinical manifestations that are going to be seen. Let's start with a lab diagnosis, right? So what are the specimen that you want to collect in case your patient is suspected to have candidiasis? So that will be, dependent on the place that you are seeing, right? So the specimen will be depending on the site of infection, right? So like if it's a urinary tract infection, or if you're seeing the septicemia, so you're going to collect blood, urine, sputum, right? So various things like mucosal patches in case of oral thrush, mucosal patches, or skin, nail scrapings, or you can collect blood, urine as well. Now, after you are done with the collection of the specimen, what are you going to do? You are going to do a wet mount or a gram stain. So on wet mount, you are going to see simply you are going to see yeast-like cells, right? So on wet mount, you are going to see yeast-like cells. Right now, you cannot comment whether it's Candida albicans or any other species of Candida at this time. But obviously on wet mount, you're going to see yeast-like cells. So you are going to comment that yeast-like cells are seen. If you're going to perform gram stain, you are going to see gram-positive yeast-like cells. So right now we are not sure which species it is, right? So but we are saying just yeast-like cells. But in case in the wet mount or gram stain you are seeing pseudohyphae, so that will be a matter of concern. So if pseudohyphae is present, then you know that there is tissue invasion already occurred. So you know that this is a serious infection in this particular patient, right? Because pseudohyphae normally does not occur. They only occur when the tissue invasion is already present. Now what next you are going to do? You're going to do culture. So on SDA, right, on Sabbrodextrose agar, you are going to see colonies which are described as creamy, white, pasty colonies, right? Creamy, white, pasty colonies, which I have shown here. These are the colonies of Candida albicans, and they appear in about 1 to 2 days, right? So we are going to see creamy white pasty colonies which are going to appear about in 1 to 2 days. Now you are obviously suspecting that okay, after culture also, okay, maybe this could be a case of Candida, right? So for confirmation, we do this very specific test for Candida albicans, right? So it is a specific test, germ tube test for Candida albicans, right? So what happens is we take the sample. We take the colonies from the culture, right? We take the colonies and we add human blood, human or sheep serum, right? We add human serum or sheep serum with the colonies, and then we incubate it 37 degrees Celsius for 2 hours, right? So we took the colonies and we added the human or sheep serum, right? And then you incubate it at 37 degrees Celsius for 2 hours. Now after 2 hours, we are going to examine right? We are going to examine under the microscope, and what we are going to see, we are going to see a yeast cell which has this extended long tube, right? This is known as a germ tube, right? So what is a germ tube? It is nothing but a long tube-like projection. It is a long tube-like projection extending from the yeast cells, right? So this is a very specific test for Candida albicans, germ tube test, in which we take colonies of the Candida and we add human or sheep serum. Then we incubate it at 37 degrees Celsius for about 2 hours, and then when we examine it under the microscope, if it is really Candida albicans, we are going to see a long tube-like projection extending from the yeast cell, right, and which is known as germ tube. Now this method is also known as germ tube test is also known as Reynolds-Brody phenomena, and this is actually going to be positive for two species. Actually, it is obviously a specific test for Candida albicans, but it could also be seen with Candida dubliniensis, right? So in case we want to differentiate that whether it is Candida albicans or whether it is Candida dubliniensis, right? So we are going to grow these fungi at 45 degrees Celsius. So what happens is, at 45 degrees Celsius, when we grow the fungi, the Candida albicans is going to grow. Okay, so this will grow, while Candida dubliniensis does not grow. So that is also a differentiating test, right? So germ tube test is going to be positive for Candida albicans and Candida dubliniensis. But if we grow the fungi at 45 degrees Celsius, then we will know for sure whether it is Candida albicans or not, because Candida albicans is going to grow, but Candida dubliniensis is not going to grow, right? So what else we can do here? It is a picture which is depicting these germ tube, right? You can see the very long tube extending here, right? So these are all germ tube extending from the yeast cell, and these are actually what the true hyphae are. There is no constriction, right? So next we can do Dalmau plate culture. Here we take cornmeal agar. Okay, here what happens is we take cornmeal agar, which is, by the way, a nutrient deficient culture. It is a nutrient deficient culture. So as cornmeal agar is a nutrient deficient culture, it will induce the growth of chlamydospores, right? Spore production occurs when there is unfavorable environment. So when we give cornmeal agar, which is a nutrient deficient culture for that particular fungi, so the Candida albicans is going to produce chlamydospores. So that is one more test. Now what else we can do? We can do chrome agar. We can inoculate these we can make cultures on chrome agar. What is actually this picture showing us? These are the various species of Candida, right? And various species of Candida show different colors on chrome agar. So for Candida albicans is going to show light green color on chrome agar, right? So chrome agar is for the various species of Candida only, and various species of Candida show different colors on chrome agar. And in case of Candida albicans, it is going to show this light green color here. This is the light green color colonies of Candida albicans on chrome agar, right? Then what else we can do? We can do serology, right? We can do antibody detection and antigen detection, right? So for antibody detection, we can have ELISA. We can do ELISA to detect antibodies against cell wall mannins. These are nothing but antigens of the fungi, right? And we can also do antigen detection again by ELISA to detect some cytoplasmic antigen or cell wall mannin antigen, right? Now what is G-test? So G-test is one of the tests for the metabolites. It is a test for metabolite, right? And it is done to detect alpha-1,3 glucan, right? So it is not that important, but still it could be done in some labs, right? So we have had so many ways to diagnose whether it is Candida albicans or not. Now let's talk about the treatment. When you definitely know that okay, this is a case of candidiasis and probably is caused by Candida albicans, or maybe some other species as well, right? So we have for the treatment of cutaneous candidiasis or oral thrush, we give topical azoles, right? And for the treatment of esophageal or vulvovaginal candidiasis, we are going to give oral fluconazole, right? And for the treatment of disseminated candidiasis, right, when the tissue invasion has already occurred, so invasive candidiasis, we give amphotericin B, right? So one important thing that we haven't mentioned yet, right? So for the cutaneous candidiasis or oral thrush that you're seeing, we are going to give just the topical azole, right? For the cutaneous candidiasis like intertrigo. Then for the esophageal or vulvovaginal candidiasis, candidiasis, by the way, was an AIDS defining illness, so remember that. Or for the vulvovaginal candidiasis, we are going to give oral fluconazole. And for the disseminated candidiasis, we are going to give amphotericin B. But the thing that we have to remember that two species of Candida, that is Candida glabrata and Candida krusei, these are intrinsically resistant to azoles, right? So azoles are not going to work on them. So we do not give, if we are suspecting that that is a species of Candida glabrata that has infected our patient, we are not going to give azoles because they are not going to work, because these species, Candida glabrata and krusei, are intrinsically resistant to azoles, right? So this was a huge topic, and let's recap this a bit. Okay, let's see what we have learned so far. Right. So, candidiasis. Candidiasis is caused by the genus Candida, right? It is a yeast-like fungi which is going to show pseudohyphae, but not Candida glabrata, right? And is the most Candida albicans is the most common and most pathogenic species which is infecting humans, and it is a commensal found in our skin or oral mucosa or GIT mucosa or genitourinary tract, right? What are the risk factors that are going to make you prone to getting this disease, candidiasis? These could be your HIV infection or some person on steroid therapy, post-transplantation, neutropenia, or zinc or iron deficiency, right? Now, what are the virulence factor? What are the weapons of this organism which is making so easy for it to, help in the pathogenesis, which is going to help it invade our tissues, right? So we have edescents. These are the nothing but weapons which is going to help it attach to the host skin or mucosa. Then we have enzymes like such as aspartate proteinase or serine proteinase. We have toxins like glycoprotein extract of the cell wall, which is pyrogenic, by the way. Then we have also pseudohyphae, which if you see indicates an active infection in your patient and shows tissue invasion, right? And this Candida albicans is going to show you the property of phenotypic switching or phenotypic dimorphism. It is going to exist in more than two forms, that is yeast form. It can exist in yeast form, pseudohyphal form, or the true hyphal form, based on the various changing condition of the host cell. Then we saw the various clinical manifestation of the which we can see in our patient, right? So we can see mucosal candidiasis, cutaneous candidiasis, or invasive candidiasis, right? In mucosal candidiasis, we are going to see oral thrush, which are nothing but the white patches that we see adherent to the oral mucosa. Vulvovaginal candidiasis, that is going to be seen in diabetic women, and there is initially a thin vaginal discharge which is going to turn into curdy white, right? And there is intense pruritus as well. Intertrigo is one of the cutaneous candidiasis, which is the infection of the skin folds. There will be presence of erythema and pustules, and invasive candidiasis will be occurring as urinary tract infection, pulmonary candidiasis, or septicemia. Then we saw the lab diagnosis. For the lab diagnosis, we are going to collect specimen based on the site of infection, right? And that could be your mucosal patches, your skin, nail scrapings, blood, urine, whatever. Then you're going to do a wet mount or gram stain, and on wet mount or gram stain, you're going to see yeast-like cells, right? Yeast-like cells or gram-positive yeast-like cells when you do gram stain. And if the pseudohyphae you are seeing in the microscopy, that indicates an active infection or tissue invasion, right? Then you're going to do culture on Salvia dextrans agar, which is going to show you creamy white pasty colonies, which is going to appear in about 1 to 2 days, and these are the specimen of that. Right, then you are going to do a very specific test for Candida albicans, which is, by the way, the most common and the most pathogenic species that you are going to suspect if you're suspecting candidiasis. Right, so a germ tube test is done, which is for specific for Candida albicans. We take the colonies and we add human or sheep serum, and then we incubate it at 37 degrees Celsius for about 2 hours. And after 2 hours, we are going to examine it under the microscope, and we are going to see this germ tube. The germ tube is nothing but this long tube-like projections coming out of the yeast cell, and we saw here how it was, right? And this germ tube test is going to be positive for Candida albicans as well and Candida dubliniensis. But to differentiate between these two, we grow the fungi at 45 degrees Celsius. If the fungi grow, it is Candida albicans, and if it does not grow, it is Candida dubliniensis. Right? Then we can do a Dalma or plate culture, which is nothing but we grow the organism at the corn meal agar, which is a nutrient deficient medium. So nutrient deficiency will induce spore formation. So we are going to see chlamydospores in the culture. Right? Then we saw chrome agar, right, in which the Candida albicans is going to show light green color colonies. And for the serology, we can do antibody detection or antigen detection by ELISA. Right, we are going to see antibodies against cell wall mannins, or we can detect directly cytoplasmic antigens or cell wall mannin antigens. Right, then we can do a G test, which is nothing but a test for metabolite. It is done to detect alpha-1,3 glucan. Right, and for the treatment of cutaneous candidiasis such as intertrigo or oral thrush, we are going to give topical azoles. And for the treatment of esophageal or vulvovaginal candidiasis, we are going to give oral fluconazole. And for the disseminated or the invasive infection, we are going to give amphotericin B. But two species of candidiasis, Candida, that is Candida glaberata and Candida krusei, are intrinsically resistant to azoles. So if we are suspecting these two species, we are not going to give our patient the azoles because they will just simply not work. Right, so that was all about candidiasis. I really hope you like this video. Thank you.